there was like a kind of a middle road proposal back in the early 2000s when they were discussing this problem, where like Charles Krauthammer was an old conservative commentator, and he said maybe we should have a two-tiered system where we have an individual minimum wage, and then we have a minimum wage for family wage. So like if you are the sole breadwinner in the home, maybe there should be a different minimum wage for that, which caused all kinds of controversy. But it's a way to think about how now everything is based around this individual model rather than a family model, like it used to be. So it does, the more women, the more mothers that are working, the harder it is to have a family wage. So.
And I'd imagine too, if the mom's working, they have to eat out more and they have to do more like, because you can actually make food pretty cheap. I was shocked. I did a wife school episode where we bought a week's worth of groceries on, I think it was 30 or 35 pounds. And I didn't think you could do it. I was like, there's no way. And you can. Yeah. I was 35 pounds. I was like, but it's,
now not everybody can do this, but we live in a rural area. This is what we did. Because when we were young, we didn't have any money. And by the time I got to baby number 5, my husband was like, okay, it does no longer. That's the other thing. If you want more than 2 kids, you're going to have to make an insane amount of money to have them all in daycare or have a nanny for 5 kids. So for us, that wasn't going to work either. So he's like, well, I'll do whatever I have to do so you can stay home. So he worked a ton of hours for over a decade and like ran himself into the ground so that the kids could be home with me. So I'll be forever thankful to him for that. But we live in a rural area, so we were able to keep chickens and goats and have a big old garden, which helped us a lot with food costs. And then the kids learned how to grow their own food and like raise chickens and have their eggs and all that sort of stuff. So if you've got a garden with a bunch of potatoes and you've got chickens and eggs, you've got food and it's cheap and you can feed a big family on that kind of thing. So I know not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody has to be a homesteader, but it's something you could think about.
How much does that cost? Like,
it depends. So like chickens are super cheap. Chickens don't need a lot. You can give them like just any kind of little coop. Like our first one was kind of like cobbled together at home with like spare lumber, just a little coop where they can go at night to roost and lay. And then they can wander in free range, which is actually better because then they're eating all the bugs and worms and their eggs have more nutrition.
How did you stop the freaking ours? It would always get eaten by raccoons.
Ours would go in at night and we didn't have too many predator problems. There was one time that a dog got into the coop and that was real bad, but
you really?
Fencing. Yeah, you can do fencing if you have like predator problems, and it's for chickens, it's cheap. The bigger the animals you get, the more it's going to cost, and that's not like doable for everybody. But I mean, in World War II, everybody had gardens and chickens, and they called them victory gardens because there was food shortages and there was, where they would put a limit on how much you could have of certain goods. So they would encourage the American public to grow food and keep chickens and call them victory gardens. So like even in suburban areas, people did this back then. So yeah, it's just something to think about. I realize not everybody wants to do that nowadays, but we loved it and it was fun and the kids love chasing chickens around. So
I'm really surprised you didn't have predator. That was like such a big. We grew up on 40 acres, and I'm telling you you would go out to feed them, and there would be a massacre. There would just be feathers everywhere. And
it happens. It does happen sometimes, but yeah, there's things that you can do to kind of like limit that.
Yeah. But okay, so one way you can offset food costs is by growing your own food. Yeah. Or just sticking to, I'm guessing, like a cheap budget in the store. Finding a butcher, I've heard. Yeah,
where you get like staple foods and like buying food in bulk and cooking in bulk is a really great thing too. Like we'll go to Costco and get the giant bag of rice, a big, huge thing of potatoes. You get a big bulk thing of like ground chuck or something like that. You get your meat, whatever it is. And we have like the big chest freezer to store stuff like that. Another great thing you can do, even if you're in the city, go to like a local farmer and buy a whole cow or a half a cow. You'll get way cheaper meat and it's much better than grocery store meat. They don't put all the fillers and dyes and all the weird stuff in it. So every year we would do like a half a cow and a pig and put it all in the freezer. And then we always had food, and you just buy, and sometimes we would barter and trade. So like my husband was a gunsmith, and he would trade gunsmithing work for like a pig or something like that. So I know it sounds probably like old timey and very country to some people who are watching, but that's what we did, and it worked great.
Could you do that even if you have no skills in that? Like, is that something that can be easily learned? Like
raising animals?
Yeah.
Well, no, that probably has a little, like raising cows has a little more of a learning curve on it, and you'd have to have enough property to do that. But we didn't raise them ourselves. We just had neighbors that raised cows and pigs. And so we would barter and trade with them, or just buy a half a cow or a whole cow, because it's just a lot cheaper. It would be like, $2 and something a pound instead of $5 or $6 a pound to do it that way, to buy things in bulk. If you're just an average family that's going to have 2 kids, this is much easier. If you're insane like me and you love your babies and you have 5 or 6, then it takes a little more creativity and a little more willingness to change your lifestyle. Like we didn't do fancy family vacations. We just had one car for a long time. And then when I did get a second car, we just bought it cash. And if you don't have a loan on it, the insurance is cheaper. So we cut a lot of costs. We were doing thrift shopping, all that kind of stuff. But as they get older, and the older 3 are adults now there's more money for things and stuff like that. So it's a lot of sacrifice in some areas on the front end of your life, and then you reap all the rewards of that later in your life. And you do get time with your kids, which you can't get back. You can't ever go back and get that back for yourself.
So what are the other expenses that go into raising children?
Yeah, so the other expenses are going to be, so we talked about childcare and education. We talked about, daycare being the single biggest. And then it's food, which we kind of talked about already. Clothing. Clothing, it's like kids, there's no point of buying brand new clothes for your kids when they're little. If they're high school age and they want something cute or whatever, even then we would still go to like the higher end, like consignment stores where you can find the name brand stuff, but it's still a little cheaper, because they get sick of it in 2 months. At least mine, they were girls, the older ones. So they'd wear like the really fashionable outfit for 2 months, be tired of it, and take it and swap it for other things. And then when they're little, I would go to like thrift stores and stuff and get them clothes, because they're always tearing holes in the knee anyway. They're always staining everything because they're spilling on themselves. And you know how little kids are, they're messy. So there's no point in buying brand new name brand clothes for like little bitty kids. They had like nice church outfit, and then they had all their play clothes, which were really cheap. You can do garage sales. You can do swaps on Facebook. So like on Facebook Marketplace, there's often moms who are like getting rid of a big batch of clothes that are the right size for your kid, and you can swap or get them really cheap. So clothing can be really affordable for little kids.
What would you recommend? What did you spend a year on clothes for your kids?
Oh, I'm one of those like really proud of getting stuff for cheap kind of people. So I would go to this consignment store that's called Once Upon a Child in the area that I live. And they would have twice a year where they'll have like a blowout sale where they give you a big bag and you can fill the whole bag with clothes for like $15.
Wow.
So yeah, and I could find them really good stuff. Like sometimes I'd find them name brand things that had like looked like they'd never been worn or might never have been worn, and fill up the whole bag. I'd say probably $200 a year for 5 kids when they were little. And then I would brag to my husband. I'd be like, "Yes, I'm so good at this." And he'd always say, "Find a Dutch wife because they don't like to spend money."
Wow. Okay, so I'm just breaking this down in it doesn't like what else do you need to spend on then? Because now you've covered food, you've covered clothes, they're not going to school.
Yeah. So my kids did have access to electronics. I didn't completely like never let them have electronics. What they were watching and looking at was like tightly monitored, so they weren't getting into anything bad for them. But we didn't give them cell phones until they were like 12. And I think a lot of parents think that these 3 and 4-year-old kids need like a whole video game system and a tablet, and then they get them a phone. Like they're getting them brand new iPhones. So the other costs I think that are associated with kids are totally Like you can take it or leave it. You don't have to. They're not necessary. So if you live somewhere where your kids can play out in the yard, that's really cheap. Get them a ball. Get them a ball and a frisbee. Get them some bubbles. You know, when they're little, that kind of stuff will totally entertain kids. You can buy used toys for really cheap. Other than that, like those are the main things. Even the USDA's report on raising a kid, it says that the average annual daycare costs and then later the college tuition are the most expensive things. And then after that, it's food and then clothing. And then like medical bills would be the other thing.
Oh, medical, right.
Yeah, that might be the thing that you would have the hardest time, you know, having control over, because it's going to depend on where you live and what your income is and what access to healthcare you have. So that might be the one that you would have the hardest time manipulating or getting the cost down because you don't have as much control over it. But you can definitely make having a larger family and staying home work if you're willing to make some lifestyle changes. No, you can't get the brand new Prada bag every season, and you probably can't take 2 expensive vacations every year, and you probably can't lease a brand new vehicle, and you probably can't, you know, live in a downtown penthouse loft or something. But if you're willing to move out of the city and you're willing to make some lifestyle changes and some sacrifices, you can totally do it. It just depends on your priorities.
Well, and the other thing I was thinking about, I feel like I've always thought about I don't ever want to get used to too nice of a lifestyle because it's going to have to go down when you have kids. There's no way. So like when the girls have like this caked on, this caked on makeup, like the false eyelashes, fake hair. Yeah. I'm just like, how are you going to afford that when you have kids?
You won't.
Yeah.
I mean, you might have noticed. You could probably tell I'm not getting lip fillers and Botox and lash extensions and hair extensions and liposuction and fake tanning and all of these crazy expensive things. But again, it's kind of a matter of priority. And honestly, if you're married and you're being a good wife, I don't think that most of that stuff is necessary. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
If you're a good wife with a good attitude who's doing her duty and taking care of this man's children, and you're being a good wife to him, and when he comes home from work, you're appreciative. I think that's like probably the hardest thing now for a lot of women is if they're home all day with the kids and their husband comes home, the minute he hits the door, they probably want like a break, right? Oh, I need a break. But my advice is give the guy a little bit to decompress, let him kick up his feet and like check his phone and relax for a little bit. Then if you need to go do something or whatever, he's probably going to be like, oh yeah, sure, go ahead. Mine always was. But men need a little time when they get in the door. You can't just like dump on them the minute they get in the door. So I think if you're being a good wife and you're doing your best, I don't think men care about that as much as we think they do. I think that's women competing with each other for like clout. You know what I mean?
They're asking me about insurance. Ask you about insurances. Health
insurances, car insurances, or all of it?
All.
So we got like a bundle. This is something everybody probably knows about, but if you guys want me to tell you, I will. So like through our insurance provider, we have our car insurance, our home insurance, our life insurance, and then like protection on what's in our house, all under an umbrella like insurance policy, which makes it way cheaper. So if you go through one company for all those things, you can get massive discounts. Health insurance is the toughest. And that's not something that like I have a good solution for because like I said, we don't have control over it. So if you're lower income, you probably qualify for Medicaid wherever you are in the United States. I think the UK has something similar, right? Mm-hmm. For low income people, there's like state government healthcare. It may not be the best, but it's something. If your husband has a good job, he may get good insurance through his work. I never, like the jobs that I worked, I never got good insurance anyway through my jobs. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm sure there are women that do, and maybe that's like a complicating factor that you got to figure out. But yeah, I mean, we just took that into account. My husband was like, when he would negotiate for a salary with a company, because he's in mechanical engineering, he would be like, look, this is what I need for benefits. Can you do that or not? And if they couldn't, it was like he would go somewhere else. But he had very high demand skills and he learned them. He didn't go to college. He was trained on the job. So he started with a company, had them pay for his training, worked his way up, got more training, worked his way up till he got to a point where he was making good money and had good benefits and all of that. And it took a few years, but that's how he did it so that he didn't have to go into debt. So if you have a working husband and the mom wants to stay home, have the husband negotiate a good benefits package as part of his job, if that's possible. If you guys are really low income and just starting out, see if you qualify for, Medicaid or something like that until you can get to that point. I think that's like my best insurance advice.